Welcome to the Unstructured Podcast. In this two-part episode, I talk with trend researcher and strategist Tsveti Enlow. After opening the first youth hostel in Bulgaria at the age of 19, a few years after the fall of communism, Tsveti went on to study international business in the United States and become an expert in identifying trends and connections across art, business, and culture. Tsveti and I talk about her consistent path of creating her own roles, becoming a trend strategist and how that role is changing, and the need for self-care in a career that runs 24/7. I'm Michelle Rose, and this is Unstructured. This episode was brought to you by Struktur Society, the community for creators in art, design, and music. For almost a decade, Struktur has brought together creatives from across the industrial, apparel, graphic, and sound design industries, building professional relationships, creating a platform for knowledge sharing, and raising the bar of product creation. From live events and workshops to publication and podcasting, Struktur continues to evolve to build the strong creator community needed to craft our future. Find us at struktursociety.com and subscribe to our Substack at struktursociety.substack.com. Kind of moves into that, but I want to go into the places, like I said, that I feel are really, what you really added a lot to, and I left open for you to do that is to think about this role that you've created for yourself over the years that has evolved. Now you're independent. You have moved on, because of company shifts and somebody suggesting, planting that seed in you to be independent. How long have you been independent now?
Since 2018 or 19, I don't remember. And with COVID, everything. Time became a very elusive concept. But 18 or 19, something like that.
I know there's always this, and it's like just before COVID, a year or two, and then COVID hits, and you're like, it's almost as if it's like you were perfectly set up to be able to kind of weather COVID to go independently. And I want to talk about, we could talk about how you got there, but really what I want to do is talk about being there.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing much how I got there. Like it was on a very big journey.
A lot of people.
I did go very naive. I have to say, I went like with everything else. I went very naively in this and like thinking of.
It's not like you had some big grand plan. Like I'm gonna do it.
Never
to this point, move on, and I'm gonna go independent. I'm gonna build my company. I don't know that many people that actually really do that. People do that, but most people it's because of some sort of forced change. So,
yeah, for me, again, kind of happened naturally. With I never really gave it a thought. I was just gonna go and find another job, and Julia Day suggested that. And it's like, okay, I got two projects, and things start at the beginning. Things were coming easily, I was owning the relationships. I was working with big brands and, my own clients. I was not going through an agencies. I was not going through, I owned the relationship.
Mm.
And that was my first experience. It's like, oh, I can do that. But I also knew the people, they were my connections through work, and they knew me, they knew my work. So I didn't really have to sell myself.
So you were getting the word of mouth through who you knew.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, that seems fun. Things were shaping up, and then COVID hit, and everything came to a screeching halt. Not just for me, who it just really started, but for companies, and suddenly no one was working with consultants or agencies. It was really, how it was. And but I just remember even when I was at Icebreaker, someone said, selling start when you get no's. That's where you really start selling.
You get what?
When you get a no for an answer.
Oh, yeah, when you get no's. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, to kind of restart the whole thing after, at the end of the pandemic, and it's, at the beginning, after we're coming out, it's like I kind of had to put myself out there again, being super, super vulnerable, and put myself out there and get no's and, try to sell yourself. And that was something. I'm good at what I do. I'm not very good at selling myself, which goes back to like the whole creative things like value, worth, how much your creative work it's worth, how you put a price, and all of these things and pitches, and how because we work with ideas, I don't work with a tangible product, design or product. Like I have ideas, that's my IPA. And you have to be careful how much you devote. You want to give some to make people interested, but you can't give too much, because then they just go and run with it, and why they would hire you. So I'm learning. Definitely that's not my strong part when we come to money. I'm not good at that. And I'm trying to get better and more comfortable with this conversation. And it's not easy. Like I just belong to different groups of, specifically forecasters, trend strategists, futurists, and it seems that we all struggle with that. So, I just wonder why. And most of us are women, so probably there's some aspect of it too. But it's also putting a value of ideas and creativity, and it just that's something I'm trying to get better. And I'm searching and, learning every day as we speak, and trying to kind of reshape my mindset. Because at the end of the day, it goes back to being sustainable. Yeah, you can be very busy, but, at the end of the year, it has to also this thing to support you financially.
Yeah. And you deserve it. I think that's a big female thing is, I think we believe we deserve it, but somewhere in there, that asking for money, we were just talking about, putting your story out there. It's very similar. It's that vulnerable place, and money is that energy that has a lot of power, and it can create a lot of vulnerability in asking for that energy back. It's hard when you don't have it. It's hard when you do. It's an energy, and that's a piece that we're all kind of struggling with, which is, it's an energy exchange versus this thing that we've attached to it.
Because also what happens is specifically, and this is kind of like the mind space I'm right now. It's kind of like that wellness, mindfulness, self-sustaining, abundance mindset, how you create these boundaries, and push and say no, and also push back. And that comes with experience. It comes like, I went through like 2 years of putting some experiences under my belt. And, now I would probably I feel more confident, and, I'm trying to work through these conversations, because they're not easy for me as well. But, what it's hard, because kind of going back to like we were talking, losing, kind of like your voice and things, but it's really, I think the work, and maybe I'm wrong, but, I experienced this even at Icebreaker, because my work comes so early in the process. It's ideas, it's creative, it's direction. It's not attached to any physical product or anything. It's just comes so early in the process that by the time something happens, it's very, you can't like kind of put there's no straight line really. Even though, you don't know how exactly you got to the end, and I'm sure the work I did has influenced it, but it's not like if you're a designer, you can show this product. It's like, I created this. I was part of a team. I was part of creating this campaign. With work like this, it's very because it's kind of like the first step of everything. It's the foundation. Even if you do creative strategies and things, this is the foundation, the insights and this piece. So it's hard to kind of attach
the ideas of, well, why do I need we would get that a lot of like, well, we subscribe to all these trend resources and you're traveling and getting information. Why do I need to do all of this?
Oh yeah, I was getting this a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, because we know the answer.
That's not really where I wanted to go. I don't want to go into a bash about it. But at the same time, I mean, this is a great lead into the pitfalls of the profession. So I want to hear, a little bit about, I don't know, I want to start digging into this piece, which is your work, what you do, and talking about what you love about it. And then what are the hard pieces? So because I'm just going to leave it at that.
I mean, I loved research and spotting things, analyzing things, making connections, filing. I read and everything is highlighted, underlined before I even start working in this field. That's just how my brain works. And, to be in this field, you have to be very, very curious naturally. That's the first thing. You're curious, and then, you start, your brain never stops. You're always analyzing, always filing, always, even, vacations, you go and analyze stuff. Yeah. Noticing things. So I just, that to me is very natural. It happens very natural. I also love the research piece, because I truly feel alive. Like I lit up, and I start a project, and I'll tell you how first it starts. Let's say I get a project and the brief is XYZ. And I'm excited because, oh my God, this is a new topic or something really interesting. And then the second things come, it's like a slight panic. What do I know about this? Am I gonna discover something? Am I gonna tell them something they don't know? I don't know anything about this topic. Sometimes I work on a very vastly different topics, like crazy difference, from future of tech to like wellness to, I mean, they're very diverse topics.
Never boring.
And so it's not just me staring in one particular thing every day, all day long. But one thing kind of like I start, the next step, it's like trust the process. There is a process. There are certain steps. There are certain methodologies. Trust the process. You've done it many, many times. You do it. And that just kind of like calms me down. And then I start researching. Now I go into the research and, I kind of have the idea, okay, if that's the subject, I'm going to look at this and this and have an outline, some kind of outline, how I'm going to tackle. But the magic really happens when you start going to the rabbit holes and you find, and you have to, and that's the blessing and the curse, the rabbit holes. It's where you start uncovering, like you think the research is going one way, and then you uncover this 1 or 2, 3 rabbit holes, whatever. And then you open suddenly this a whole another world and another perspective. And then suddenly everything just kind of, at least that's kind of the process it seemed to work for me. Suddenly everything just unlocks and everything shifts and aha moments, and like I go in these crazy moments. And the magic happens. Now, the pitfalls are the rabbit holes, right? All I don't think of strength, weaknesses, and, talents. Some talents, they're not like black and white anymore. I used to think of this as black and white. And it's all a spectrum, because the rabbit holes, it's truly your blessing and where you really find interesting stuff. But also it could be the curse, because if you keep going on a lot of rabbit holes, you can get really overwhelmed and kind of start losing track. So it's kind of, I've learned doing it enough now to catch myself and pull myself back. And also you don't have the luxury of time. because you have to deliver, so you can't be like spending too much time in the rabbit holes. But
it sucks up a lot of, I mean, we've talked a bit about this too. It's like when you go down those rabbit holes and you're reading and you're researching, that hours can disappear, right?
yes, and then you're in this point, like I'm kind of like, this is the zoom in. Like you're so into the research, so into the weeds, that at this point, you know, when you start, analyzing or start writing or synthesizing that step of the process, and I looked at this insane amount of signals, like insane amount of information. It's like, oh my God, how I'm gonna create a story? How I'm gonna tell that story? It has to have a story. It has to flow. And I have to disconnect. I have to just kind of step back for a little, it's not like a week or anything like that, but you have to kind of somehow manage to disconnect and suddenly zoom out and look at the 10,000 view. Mm-hmm. And that's critical, because when you're in the weeds, it's, seems everything, it's important, it seems this and this, but when you zoom out, that's where you start extracting the insights.
So from massively micro to massively macro.
Yes, it's and it has to happen because the cycles now are so condensed, and it's like all the projects and like everything, it's like due yesterday. It's how you create this in this vacuum, how you create that space in a really short amount of time. Mm-hmm. But that also goes back to like pushing the boundaries and communicating your process and how much time you need. And that's something also I've learned. And I'm trying to get better. It's like, I understand I'm part of a bigger process, but this is also my process. And I need that time in order to deliver this. And, when you squish my timelines, like things get affected. And another way, like the projects I like working the most, it's when they're collaborative. And this is where I really enjoy the most. It's, you're doing the research together and you bounce back ideas and you help each other. That's another way to zoom out and like kind of getting a reality check, so to speak. So now this is like what, and I lit up. I mean, see, I'm talking about trends, like I lit up about this stuff. I just love it. Even if I'm not working it, I always will do it. Yeah. Now, the other aspect of it is last year, I had this realization. I was working on this project, and I was writing about, transformative futures. Where I can understand why planetary boundaries are breaking down, human health and mental boundaries are breaking down, uncertainty, anxiety, burnout, depletion, kind of like society in flux. And I was writing about, burnout and overwhelm, people feeling overwhelmed, information overload, collapsing of cycles and time and compression and hyper acceleration of everything. And I just suddenly realized that as I was writing, and this was like, again, a project with very tight deadlines, things kept getting changed. And as I was writing this, I actually realized I was experiencing all of it. And I recognized myself in the work, in the process, that I was reliving all of these things. And which kind of like after I finished the project, and this is leading up to this was, projects which I work on very like really deep issues, like future of sustainability, future of, kind of very societal issues and inequalities and equitable futures and all kinds of things. And, it was a little bit of a dark space. Yeah. And I had to zoom out and say, like, okay, recognize the fact that, these things I can really, when you read, especially when you even I was part of these consumer research groups and listening to people's pain and very heavy issues and researching on the statistic can really put you down. Like you can really feel very heavy and you feel, the research can affect you. And I had to zoom out and say, like, well, because you can get very easily into like a nihilistic and kind of negative mindset. But then you have to do it's like, this is an amazing opportunity, and flip the script. Because I can flip the script for clients, but, I also have to flip the script for me, So it's an amazing opportunity to be alive because, how often do you have the chance to create something, to change a system, to create something from scratch, to build something new? It's exciting, right? And we are still at a time where we can change stuff, right? Still have some time. And then I had to recognize myself and flip, okay, how do I approach myself to keep my kind of boundaries, to keep, that self-care in that process? Can I approach myself as a trend project? How can I trend forecast myself into the future? Because I'm a researcher. Like to me, that's easy to approach myself as a project. It's easier for me to disconnect and see things objectively, what I do, where can I improve.
That's great.
But these are kind of some of the, another thing what's happening in the field, because there's such an acceleration. There's, of everything, of information, of change, of, there's just so much out there that you're realizing that you can't read and you can't be on top of everything all the time. And so how you manage that, and you're okay with this. And another especially when you do culture and societal trends, because kind of before it used to be one thing. If you're let's say I'm a color person and I do color and I do only this and I only that. Now, like everything, it's so interconnected that you have to follow so many different things to make these connections. You cannot look technology, you cannot look society, you cannot ignore other things, because things are so interconnected and everything. Yes, you can't just chunk them. Everything affects each other, and kind of bringing that multi-approach view, like bring different points and explaining how everything works as a system, how this one thing affects the other things. So to me, it's just kind of probably coming to realization is that not be so hard on myself, and realizing, I won't be able to keep with everything happening. And also, using kind of like building your second brain and lean into tools, lean into communities, because, I really think the future of this profession, it's kind of like knowledge crowdsourcing and collaborative research and it's not going to be silo. You can't just keep up with everything.
You
have to tap to the power of the community. And I belong to many different communities, and there's also like really interesting platforms and communities emerging, like the Meta label, where it's kind of Web3 based community of research, and that's a lot of interesting stuffs are happening. But
well, can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that in the second brain and the crowdsourcing?
Just rely on tools, rely on technology to source, there's so many tools right now. There's so many tools, and especially with AI, how things are moving and how AI and companies are using AI in the trend forecasting field to do the heavy lifting of the signals, because most of the times it's really big chunk of the time goes into this, researching and finding the signals and sourcing the signals. And how can you also lean into technology to help you with this? And also lean into communities, and, especially in the Web3 space, and, kind of use that, use the knowledge and the brain of the community, and rely on that as well.
So that's what you mean by the second brain.
Yes, because this brain can no longer, like, our attention spans are going down again. So much information, acceleration of everything. You're constantly feeling sensory information overload. Like, I was just talking with another with Janine actually. We were working on a project together, and we were like just feeling so fried. And it's almost like because you crunch through so much information really quickly, and it's almost like what happens to me, at least. It's I feel that after I'm done with the project, it's almost like I erase to clean my brain to start a new one. Because, information overload.
This episode was brought to you by the Functional Fabric Fair powered by Performance Days, the premier trade show for performance fabrics and materials. Since 2018, the Functional Fabric Fair has been providing a unique, highly curated trade show experience in the performance materials space, aimed at providing customers with the very best options to create the highest level products in the market. Having a strong focus on education and sustainability, the Functional Fabric Fair is committed to tackling the biggest issues we face today in regards to product manufacturing and our environment. With 5 shows throughout the year from Portland to New York City to Munich, you're sure to find what you need at the Functional Fabric Fair and Performance Days. I was going to ask you, what does that look like? I mean, because the information overload, what I love, what I'm hearing and seeing in this is that, as a society, we're all having information overload already, right? Like the internet and everything getting so connected we've just been going through this massively fast, rapidly speeding up time of everybody getting too much information.
Cross-acceleration, yes.
Yeah, and as a trend researcher, you're so close to, that's already your work. You're so close to it. You are embodying what's happening in a big way. And because when you go down those rabbit holes, I mean, I know that as a designer and a creative, professional, when you go down those rabbit holes, you really connect with really deeply. Like you go places with what you find in your art, and you're, like you said, you're living it all the time. You don't really turn it off. You're always looking, your receptors are up, you're always picking up, you're always thinking of ideas, because it's just who you are. And it feeds you, but it also can be depleting.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
When you've got all of that pulling at you all the time, and you're saying it depletes you. So how do you protect yourself? How do you come in and create that place where you can replenish and refuel, regenerate yourself? Like, we're talking about sustainability in the world and with our products and the planet, and all of our systems. How do we do that for ourselves? What does self-care look like for you? I know you're on a journey with this right now. What does that look like for you now?
Don't have all the answers yet. Haven't quite figured it out. But I think it's ideally, if you have the opportunity and the privilege to maybe have a space between projects, or, kind of take a breather, not just jump from one thing to other. But that's, not always possible for various reasons. So one thing I started doing is breathing, kind of trying to be more mindful, probably more forgiving. And probably that's the biggest part. It's kind of realizing my own limitations. It's you can't know everything. You can't keep track of everything. You can't read everything. It's okay. File it. Maybe you read it later. Maybe you won't. And, it is what it is. But the other thing is just kind of really being in all these things I've known, but suddenly dawning on me that I should be doing. It's just being really in nature. Just going one thing I learned during the pandemic, it's just taking a walk in my even old neighborhood. I live very close to nature. I have so much access being in Portland to parks and hikes and things like that. But, sometimes it's just go in the neighborhood and start really noticing. I don't turn off, but like noticing the birds, the singing, notice like certain patterns, the flower, the beauty around it. Like I really feed from beauty. And sometimes when I don't even have this, I have this book. It's called Paris in Colors. And it's colorful, it's like this photography in different colors. And when I flip through this book, it just makes me happy. Like at the end of the day, for me, beauty, it's regenerative. It gives me, it feeds me back. It makes me feel, it recharges my battery. Yeah, being in nature, kind of trying to slow down, catch my breath, and just see beauty in everyday things.
Yeah.
Simple. We don't need to travel. I used to like hop on a plane and think that's the only way to feel inspired or, to feel alive. And I still love doing this. I feel the most alive when I'm traveling and sourcing signals and making these patterns. Like I feel the most alive. But that can also happen literally in your backyard. And talking to people, like just have these people where you can tap and just normal conversation and like certain people, like I have a conversation and I feel so recharged. It could be anything crazy, like with you. Like I feel very easily inspired and recharged because I'm a very, sensitive person, and like creativity, sensitivity, emotional intelligence, they're all kind of blessing and curse and superpowers, and how you manage all of that. But maybe like I would say for me personally, the biggest revelation is being kind of like being kinder to myself. I don't want to say lower your standards, but it's also like I have this really, really high, I hold myself to very high expectations all the time. And just kind of gentler on yourself.
Yeah, I don't think of having really high expectations of ourselves as necessarily, or like changing that being lowering standards. In fact, that's raising a standard of care for ourselves,
Yeah.
how we think about and respect ourselves.
And also, like, again, I'm really trying to approach myself as a project. Really has helped me to be objective. And it's like, okay, you don't fail a client, you don't fail deliverables, you don't fail anything, any part of the process. And then flip that script. It's like, are you failing yourself? Yeah. If you're not failing your client, why are you failing yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I am working through a lot of things, and don't have all the answers. It's a journey. I don't think I'll ever have the answers, but it's definitely a journey, because we learn one thing, then evolve, then it's the next step, and we build on.
Yeah, and I feel like you'd probably, because I was going to kind of end this by asking you, what's the top trend you're seeing right now? Trend for everyone, not just for a client, but for all of us to pay attention to. And I feel like some of that is in this, what you're talking about, that you directly experience or live what you're experiencing in what you're picking up on. We're very connected to everything. But what would be that thing that you would leave everybody with right now? Like, what do we need to think about?
Well, probably this space I'm right now, my mental space right now, it's really, but it's also a trend, is tapping into the power of your mind, and mindfulness and envision. It could go many different ways. One, it's like your breath, and kind of when everything feel like it's going crazy, just tune into your breath, recharge, regenerate, whatever, calm down. But it's also the mind, it's so powerful, and I'm just learning and reading books and things, but how, as a forecaster, as someone who's always in the future, never in the present, I'm always in the future, grounding myself, being in the moment. But it's also on the flip side, it's if I'm always in the future for project work, how I can envision myself in the future. What is this person in the future? How I want to be in the future? How I see myself? How you project yourself in the future and trying to be that thing, and just using your mind. And I'm just starting to dabble in this space, and it's really fascinating because you can wake up and it's not a great day, but like that's in our mind. It's like if I get like, no, today it's gonna be a great day, and I'll make it great. And there's just these subtle shifts, and there's something changes, something like your body and your mind are not separate. And I know this from practicing martial arts for so long, but I'm starting to grappling with this, how I feel physically affects my mental state, but how I feel mentally also affects my physical space. So, physical being. So yeah, I'm really trying to tap in and explore that. I don't want to call it mindfulness, but it's probably the power of our minds. And kind of like the agencies, our own agencies. Tap into like your own agency and how you show yourself up. That's another thing I've been thinking. Oh, so it's you are responsible. You can't be responsible for everyone else, but you're responsible how you show up and the energy you bring. And I'm not saying your brain, I'm saying the energy you bring. And that's what I'm working on right now, like how I show up for myself, not just for the external world.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I mean, I think that's, it is a journey. I've been learning that for years in different ways. And I'm actually feeling very hopeful with all of our cultures in our society, even though things are so challenging right now. Like you were saying, it's a great opportunity, a time for a lot of change, a lot of newness, a lot of opportunity to make things how we want them to be. So it's a critical time. But the mindfulness is coming out of all the chaos because we have to find ways to deal with it. And so we're being forced to find ways to deal with that. And it makes me hopeful. And I think more and more people are doing that.
And it's also like, I think probably, again, you asked me about trends, and I see them together personally and also as a trend, learning to unlearn behaviors, patterns, beliefs, societal beliefs, rebalancing to move forward. And because we're always looking, especially like if you're in the trend field, it's always like, what's the next big thing? What is that next thing? The metaverse was going to save us, then it's something else going to save us. And it's like, no, we have all the answers. Yeah. We have the answers now. But personally and, for greater change. And it's just at the end of the day, it's the hardest thing is changing your behavior and tapping into kind of like being with yourself and tapping into your inner wisdom. There's wisdom. I was just reading this really interesting article, how Earth, nature stores its memory in seeds and different things, and how, we've been so disconnected with, our, people say, well, listen to your gut, your inner feeling. Like we've been so disconnected from that we forgot how to listen to this. And like, I'm in the process of, that's why I've been going into the past and revisiting, where I come from, where, what defined me. Because we often we show up in the world, we're defined by the work we do. I do this, I'm this and that, but we're so much more than that. And trying to think about these things, it's like, been doing a lot of reflection on these topics. kind of the idea of like right now where I am, again, on the crossroads. I'm sitting at the crossroads and but I'm not observing, I'm done with observing. I'm growing and reflecting, and there's just other changes, and both personally, but I'm also looking for new answers and new ways of doing trends and methodologies,
Right.
and challenging the status quo and how not to be part of that, hype cycle, and take the longer view and like this idea of slow futures. And, that goes back to like new methodologies, new systems, new ways of even conducting research and how we filter signals. And in all of this, how we can create everything as a system, and, kind of using the regenerative principles in nature. And because, we have to take responsibility, all of us have to take responsibility for our actions, but especially like when you're in trance, like you have to take responsibility of the work we do, and not feed to this constant, hype cycles and more newness for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm professionally right now, I'm really interested in the space of like experimenting with new ways of trends and features, new methodologies. So
And
that's
does that look like new ways in research or in your reporting, or how you put it?
Both, how you evaluate signals. And, again, I'm part of this community. It's not just me, trying to figure out on my own. I belong to different futures communities and trend communities. And, we're having these conversations and, trying to work with experiment with new methodologies, which are more suited and kind of aligned with, not just looking. In the past, design was always, the 90s, early 2000 human centric. That was the buzzword. Well, now we already know that that is not enough. Mm-hmm. It has to be also planet centric. Yeah. And, it has kind of going back to that idea of rebalancing our relationship with self, with others, with the planet, and also technology. And that's really important part of the puzzle. Like it can't be just extractive. So right now everything seems one way, very extractive, that model will not hold. All these models of the fusion of innovation, of early adopters, all this stuff, I think with the acceleration of time, with acceleration and and collapsing of time and horizons and futures, this is not going to hold. We need new metrics, new ways of evaluating signals and how they align with your mission, and values and all of that. Yeah. So that's really interesting space professionally where I am. But I'm also on the flip side super interested in how we build more equitable futures. And again, kind of goes back to the circle. You told me, oh, you're humanitarian, and then you went and studied business or something. I was going to be saving the world. And now I'm like, how we build more equitable futures, and we bring the voices which historically have not been heard, the voices who historically have been silenced. How you bring these multiple perspectives, because very often in a report, it's written from, by nature of it, it's not anything malignant, but it's like one point of view. Let's say, if you write about the metaverse, usually the reports are like, or NFT, they're only one point of view and the best thing ever. But how you bring diverse point of view and different voices who haven't been heard, and you create that space. I also want to see two things. I want to see more. I want to see more futurists, predominantly like trend forecasting. Predominantly it's women, white women. If you look at futurists, truly futurists, they're white males. Mm-hmm. They're not even women. Mm-hmm. So how we bring more diversity in that. And even though I'm white woman, like I was just thinking, like I was not supposed to be here. Like where I come from, everything was not really working for me to be here. It was just some kind of like luck and defiance and, all of these things. But I know what's to be an outsider because all my life coming from Eastern Europe, we were treated as secondhand people, we were not allowed, we needed visas. We were, I know that feeling of not being good enough or not being heard or your voice not being heard. Like it was very, very, if you're in Europe, it's, here it's a bit different, but in Europe, that's why part of the reason I wanted to leave, I wanted to escape that stigma. Mm-hmm. And even how we do research, like right now, when you go and you conduct consumer research, you pay people, you get their opinion, you extract something, or, if you look at the sneakers, the whole hype sneaker economy in sneakerheads, it's like very extractive. You take this and create that hype based on a community and you make all these products and a lot of money. But that's why I like the idea of Web3. I'm fascinated with this idea. It's how also these people can benefit from this along the way, how they also have an agency and influence and they're part of this community, because people are throwing the word community a lot right now. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's just become a synonymous for consumer group, but it's much more than that. True communities are not extractive. They're not one-way relationship. It's not, but these are some of the things like neurodivergent creatives. Like I just started this group, but I'm also interested of talking more about that and how we create and how we accommodate, especially most creative people are on some kind of a spectrum, whether it's an anxiety, whether it's ADD, whether it's autism, and it's, our power and also weakness, but it's what makes us special. And, it's always been seen as a liability and you have to hide it, a lot of times, but now it's like how we normalize this conversation, embrace it. And these are things in my mind right now.
Yeah. And that's very much about that, tapping into who we are and knowing our past, knowing ourselves, knowing where we are on this.
Tapping to your full thing with the bad, the ugly, the weakness, the insecurities, the beauty, all of it. Because we tend to carve things out.
And when we do that, we're not a whole person. We're not feeling whole. We feel like parts of ourselves are missing. And
yeah.
So we're in a time of new awareness. And I think 100 years ago, we were going through an awareness phase, and now we're going through a new one where humans become more self-aware. So,
that's the hope.
That's the hope. Exactly. There's a lot of hope out there. Thanks for sharing those, because it's all such. I know you wanted to talk about those, and that's a really valuable information too. And it's like changing the process of how we do it. Everything has to change. It's kind of overwhelming right now. Is every system is being looked at. So many systems are failing. We can't stay with the status quo all the time. We have to look at how we're looking at things. So
yeah, but it's also what it means to be human in 21st and 22nd century, especially with technology, with human augmenting and biohacking, and it kind of goes back to me of these basic truths, the truths, the ancient truths of like what makes us human, basic traits. Mm-hmm. And it's not out there, we've known this. We just need to rediscover, reconnect with it and rebalance kind of these approaches. But yeah, I kind of like that quote by Dr. Seuss. Sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers are simple. I've been lately thinking about going back to Bulgaria and what defined me. And it's really, I always kind of put myself out there. And it's like, even though I'm failure, it's like when I grew up, there was no room for failure. It really, you couldn't fail, the air, you know, the space for air was almost non-existent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, like I always like raise my hand, like always been like this. Oh, hey, we don't have someone, like, can you just go and like right now on the stage and do something? I was like a little kid, and it's like, sure, I'll just go.
Yeah. And that's a courage. That's a courage that a lot of people don't have.
Putting yourself out there, even though I have something about failure, but like I'm not afraid to put myself out there. I just need to kind of tap more into that, some of these earlier things, because I've kind of somehow disconnected, and it's like,
well, there's things like
I'm scrappy. I'm never gonna be polished, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be the polished person.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with this. And I think the same with you, kind of having this perfectionist thing. It's like, it's just learning and evolving, and it's only gonna get better.
It's only going to get better if we keep doing it.
Yes. You can't just, and that's the thing, because so often I just live in my head. It's like, just freaking start doing it, and fail, or not fail, but like you just improve. It's a process. Like, you know, I just have very unrealistic expectations of things for myself, and like, no, go, just go. Yeah. Now scrappy and not perfect. It's trending.
I'm going to say.
So the more actually right now, I feel like people are trying really hard to be scrappy because it's a trend. Polish feeds, all of that, you know, and then thanks to TikTok, but like Mel Robbins, right? You follow her, like I follow her all the time.
She's totally scrappy, yeah.
I mean, and she's not, because she has a team of 10 people, but like her social media, it's like she's in freaking bed or like half naked. And it's like, that's why people love her, because she's relatable.
You have been listening to Unstructured, the podcast from Struktur Society. If you enjoyed this episode, please download, share, like, subscribe, and add your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. Also, please consider a Substack paid subscription to help us bring even more meaningful content and connection points to you and our creator community. Here you will find articles and news, as well as the podcast and additional content. We cannot grow without you. Thanks for listening, and talk to you soon.